Not to worry for my next guest, I shouldn't wonder. Brad Birch, who lives in the Australian town of Newcastle, New South Wales, that's the gentleman. Brad, you see, has a very special connection to Tredegar. It's where his grandfather, George Holder, came from. And he made sure Brad grew up knowing all about his Welsh roots. In fact, Brad now helps run a website which is dedicated to promoting the town. I spoke to him a little earlier to find out more.
G'day from Australia, mate. How are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. Let's go back to George now. How and when did George come to be in Australia in the first place?
Well, basically it was through the lack of work opportunities in Tredegar. He was given £10 by his grandmother and basically emigrated under a scheme he referred to as the Bigger Brothers program, where you came out to Australia and learnt farm life and life on the land, hopefully with prospects one day of owning your own. He came out at the age of 16 and he was well over the age of 21 before he earned even close to £1 a week.
Oof, gosh heavens. But he eventually settled, obviously.
Oh yes, indeed. In a town called Tamworth he met some good folk by the surname of Rose, and he went on there as a farmhand and ended up managing the property for the family as they got older. They had a daughter by the name of Edna, and one thing led to another, and they certainly were married and had 2 daughters.
Well, what sort of character was he then?
Oh, he was a straight down the line sort of a man, but he had a wicked sense of humour. But yeah, he was a no-nonsense sort of a fella. And
like many Welshmen, I gather, quite short but very vibrant. He never let you forget that you had Welsh blood in you.
Well, that's exactly right. He reminded us all as we were children. But there was one time especially where, you know, I was only quite young, and he sat me down and said, "You remember where you're from? You're from me, and I'm from Wales." And those words have certainly never left me.
No, indeed. Must have left a big impression. So what did he tell you about Tredegar?
Well, basically, everything. It was a town of extremes even back then. It had the beauty of the valleys, being at the heads of the valleys. Structures like the town clock, of course, the park and the bandstand, but also the lack of work opportunities that continue through basically to this day, which of course forced him more or less out of the town and out of the country.
What about the family he left behind? Did he keep in touch at all?
He certainly did. He had 2 sisters, Phyllis and Alexandra, and he maintained contact back then, obviously, by a written letter.
Yeah.
But during the war years in 1943, contact was lost, and I believe he tried several times over the years to regain contact with them, writing to several government officers, but never had any luck finding them.
Good heavens.
And I know it was something that was on his mind virtually all his life. He did speak of his sisters very fondly. When he failed to find any contact with his sisters, as he said, despite numerous attempts, he basically put it down to somehow they were killed in the war.
Yeah.
He didn't really make a direct reference to the bombings, but he knew that they happened.
So, have you tried to trace the family?
Yeah, well, that was when I first more or less joined the Tredegar website. That was basically the first thing I did in the guest book. Just said hello and left it at that, and see if I got any contacts.
Yeah.
And I think it was only more or less 4 or 6 weeks later that one of the forum members sent me an email offering to help in my search, which of course was greatly appreciated.
But tell me about your visits to Tredegar.
Twice there in 1998 and 2001, both times only brief visits, but it was raining both times, I remember that well. When I got there, of course, one of the first things I had to sort out was the clock, as George spoke of that, my grandfather, many times, and with great fondness and recollection. It was a great thing to see. But the main purpose of the visit was to find the street that he lived in, Queen Victoria Street, and I never knew the number of the place. So basically I spent some time sort of wandering up and down that street, just looking at each house.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get into your mind, was it this one, was it that one?
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
And I saw the odd curtain twitching, so I was probably quite a sight with the rain coming down.
Yeah.
It didn't really worry me.
No, I'm sure.
it was just there. It was just great to be there.
And now, fair play to you. I understand you now help from the Tredegar Forum, a website dedicated to promoting Tredegar and its values.
Indeed. I only play quite a small part in it. The forum itself has been in operation for, I think, going on 5 now.
Right.
And it's basically the heart of the website. It's where all the members, and the majority of them, you'd have to say 99%, Tredegar townsfolk, get on and raise their views and their issues.
Have you been able to find any relatives or, old associates of George at all?
Yes. Another forum member offered to help only a few months back.
All right.
A lady by the name of Val Lloyd. She was a great help, and she was successful in her search and found, I believe, a second cousin to my mother, a lady by the name of Irene Hayes.
Gosh.
And we're in quite regular contact now, probably weekly emails and things like that.
Now, your grandfather, George, obviously left his mark upon you. Have you got a certain pride now in your association and your link with Tredegar?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's great to be able to be so close to Tredegar, if you know what I mean. And thanks to the website that's there, otherwise Tredegar virtually wouldn't exist on the internet map.
No.
But there is a certain pride there, absolutely. And I know that it's basically George Holder that motivates me.
Do you know where you live now, reversing it from Tredegar back to Australia? And George lived as well, Newcastle, New South Wales, in that area. It has some strong Welsh connections generally, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does, especially this whole state of New South Wales. Obviously, from when the Europeans first discovered it, it left that impression of them, that it reminded them of the valleys. It's just, obviously on a much larger scale. But Newcastle itself, we have a Stanford Merthyr, which is, close to Tredegar. We also have Newport, which is just south of us, the same as Tredegar. We have Stockton, I think in the west of Tredegar, there's Stocktonville. There's Lloyd's and Llewellyn streets everywhere. There's a big Welsh connection here. There is also the Newcastle and Hunter Valley Welsh Society, of which I'm proud to be the treasurer of. Yeah.
And I gather there was a pit called the Rhondda, with 1 D.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, up past Stanford Merthyr, in a town called Curry, which is an Aboriginal word, I think. There's the Rhondda Colliery. I think it closed in 1975. But it was only spelt with the 1 D, whereas in the Welsh it would be spelt with 2.
Yeah, that's right, the Rhondda indeed. So now then, Brad, you're a mixture now. There's a cocktail in your bloodstream now. Are you mostly Australian, mostly Welsh, or is it just a sort of 50-50 here?
Well, to be technical, if it was the blood, it would be, mostly Australian.
Yes, but some pedigree Welshness in there as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There's certainly no doubt of that. I feel that every day.
Well, you'll certainly feel it on Wednesday when we'll be doing the entire program from Tredegar as well. So, that'll, underline a certain nostalgia, I'm sure.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Hopefully I'll be able to pick it up on the internet.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
There'll be no trouble about that. Brad, wonderful to talk to you, and greetings to you from Wales.
Thanks so much for your time.
All the very best to you now. Bye-bye now.
You too now.
Bye-bye.